Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the episode 4, The Real CEO Behind Your Results. And I'm with Elise right now. Welcome aboard. Welcome to another Thought Leaders Thursday.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Great to see you and great excited to jump in and learn more. There's so much to understand about our minds. So let's go.
Yeah, and I think you have a question for everyone to start with. How about you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, are you dealing with the root cause or symptoms? And I think this is such an important question to ask. I mean, this is things that we ask our doctors if you're dealing with a health issue. But in your business, if you're worried about low profits or you're worried about low sales, are you just dealing with the superficial stuff, or actually are you going deep into the root cause of what's causing that problem? And that's the same question we want to ask ourselves as people. Are we getting the results we want? And are we dealing with the actual question and the actual reason for those results? And that's what we're going to discuss today. We're going to talk a little bit, almost recap some of the topics we spoke about previously, but it's really important for us to know that when we want to shift things in our business or if we want to shift things in our life, what is that root cause and how do we start at the right place to really shift those results?
Yeah, and it's so important. I wish that somebody would have told me that when I was in sales because, and I've seen it many times where a sales manager or the organizations are trying to replicate the best top salesperson, and it's really more in terms of the skills and the the tips and tricks that you have to have, and then you realize that none of those things are really making a big impact because they're not addressing the root cause of sales. And so you really have to go a little bit deeper. And
Mhm.
yes, we will actually go back to how the mind works so that people can understand really what's the real CEO of their own results. And so if you're a CEO of an organization, a business owner right now, you can even think that whatever is in your mind creates the results for your team, creates the results, that the outcome that you have in your business, whether if it's a good in sales, bad sales, the way you react to your competitors, the way you do everything. And so, yeah, maybe we can go a little bit about how the mind works. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's go. So, I mean, if you're the CEO of your business, you know that you and your kind of executive team call the shots and decide what the strategy is for the business. But as Francis said, you are like, what is your CEO? What is actually calling the shots in your business? And now we've spoken about this quote where we talk about you become what you think about. And last time we spoke about paradigms and your subconscious mind, and we'll go back to that picture just now. But it's so important to know that your fundamental beliefs and your paradigms and the way that your whole belief system is structured in your life, that affects absolutely everything you do. It affects every decision, as we have on the screen here. It affects your decisions. It affects how you see your life. And ultimately, it affects your actions and then your results. And it's so important to understand that when you don't go deep into your subconscious and understand exactly what that programming looks like, that is the only way you're actually going to shift things. And I think it's that awareness that we actually want to create right now. Firstly, take and like open the veil, understand exactly what's going on there, because it's only when you have the awareness of what it is that you can start thinking, where do I want to be? And then what should it look like so that you can start making the changes you want.
Absolutely. And, I like the slides also of this one, picture in our mind and how the mind works, because I mean, it's been said so many times that really we are just recreating our life on a daily basis, and we're not really original because 90% of all the thoughts that we have were recycled from yesterday. And 95% of everything that we do is being influenced and controlled by our subconscious mind. So we thought that we have a mind, that's it, but there's more than one mind. There's a conscious mind and there's a subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is really what runs everything, 95%. So if we're asking ourselves, even in the way that we start our day, do you start your day the same way? Do you go take your shower pretty much in the same sequence? Do you start with the same side? How do you brush your teeth? Like everything is being done in the same automatic way. And so, if we're not changing the way that we're doing things, no change is going to happen in our life. So, essentially, we have to become someone entirely new. And so, if we're thinking about l- big sales and we haven't had big sales for a while, we can ask ourselves, do I really firmly believe that it's possible that my organization will double the business? And if I don't believe, then I'm not becoming a new person, and this new person is not going to have new habits and new behaviors that will create new outcomes. So, and
Mm.
if I'm the leader and if I don't believe that, how can I really trigger this influence of the vision and impart the vision on my team if I'm not believing it in myself? And so it's a
Mm.
very good
Mm.
question to ask ourselves. What are we really thinking about at the source code of all our thoughts, really, at the subconscious mind?
Yeah, and I think it's so fascinating because we have what is it, like 70,000 thoughts a day. And I think so frequently, as you said, they're just a repetition of yesterday, right? You're worried about the same things, you're thinking about the same things. Often we kind of dwell in the past, we're worried about things in the future. And the only thing you can actually affect is right this moment. You can make a decision: I'm going to do this or I'm not, right? And understanding how important that is. And I remember someone saying to me, is if you really want to make a change in your life, you need to start making different decisions. And I think that is so important because it's a decision that's almost like the knock-on effect for everything else, right? If you've decided you want to reach a goal, then you're committed. We spoke about that in the first conversation, right? You make a committed decision, and then you start thinking of, if I were to be that person, what kind of decisions would I be making right now? How would I be thinking? What would I be doing? How would I be approaching it? And that's such an interesting question because if you put yourself in that end state and think, if I were that version, how would they think about it? And that's quite an important decision, right? Because it's easy to say, but if you think about it, if you were already where you wanted to be, what would that mindset be? And I promise you it's different to where you are right now, right? Because you are today where you are because of what you were thinking previously. And your results tell you the answer. So start making different decisions. And again, you need to understand what you're thinking. You need to start being aware of that so that you can stop thoughts that are not serving you. And for me,
Yeah.
that was such an important thing to understand because often I think you feel like your mind is running away with you and it's just doing things like by itself, right? Autonomously. But when we realize that we can actually control our thoughts and it's something you very intentionally do, that's when those shifts can start happening.
Yeah, and I really like the way you just said, like, if I were the person that I intend to be, how would I make my decision? And decision is such an important concept. And I can even share a little bit personally of something that happened recently to me because, I had a few quite large business expenses to make. And, part of me was thinking, I'm going to wait until I have something to come to pay those bills. And then I thought, well, if I were the person that I know that this is my goal, let's say it's 3x of what I'm making right now, would I really bother about that? Or would I just say, no, I believe it's going to happen. I'm going to pay these things. And so this is exactly what I did. I didn't really want to use my credit card for that, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to load it up. Because at the end of the day, I choose to believe that it's going to happen. And guess what? The week after, got a new contract and it's all paid. And I really
Amazing.
firmly believe that it would not happen because other than that, like I had to make that decision and be someone else so that my vibration, the way that I think, the way that I choose my thought are entirely different. And this is why I have an entirely a change in my life. So you really have to
Mhm.
ask yourself, if I say I want to double my business and then all of a sudden there's an unexpected expenses that comes in, you're gonna be tested to say, oh, do I play safe or do I play into the game that I said that I would play? If I really firmly believe in myself, which is why the self-image is such an important thing, if I firmly believe that my organization, the self-image of an organization is the culture. And so if I feel that the culture can sustain that, and I firmly believe that, then make that decision according to that and to that vision and the entire organization as a whole. And so, but it's
Mhm.
it's really where the work is because it's a test, it's a leap of faith. Do you really go forward? And the question is, do you really believe? And so if you believe, And the reality, we spoke about that in the previous episodes as well, is that we can always find an evidence of people that were able to do exactly the same in those same type of circumstances. Otherwise, we'd be so egotistical to think, oh, I'm different. My situation is so different. Really? Like, go into literature, find the people that have had a lot of success. They will all show you that they had major failures. And so you're
Mm,
not the only one. You're not that different. And so the reality is you're able to go through this. Now the question is are you willing to go through
hmm
this? Are you willing to be aligned, which is another episode in the future, align your behavior with your belief? And so yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we go back to our title for today, the real CEO is that the real CEO is that subconscious mind, right? It's that programming, it's the matrix that we spoke about last time. And if you think about, how us as humans understand things, we like pictures. We like to see a picture of something to make sense of it. And we had a slide there of Dr. Thurman Fleet, who had this picture of what the mind looks like. And look, it seems super simple if you look at it right now, but the human mind thinks about it. If you think about your car or if you think about your pet, like you see a picture in your mind. And they found in the 30s that if you don't have a picture of what the mind looks like, it's difficult to solve it, right? And then you don't know what you're dealing with. So this picture represents the mind almost as like the head and then the body. The big circle is the mind, but your mind is actually in all your cells, right? It's like everywhere in your being. But this is just for us to understand what it looks like so that you can make sense of it. Now the mind is kind of broken into two main parts. So we have the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. And the conscious mind is where we have all the inputs from all our senses. It's our analytical mind. It's where we, collect information. Like when you go to school or college, you kind of read things, you learn things, and you can very objectively decide whether you that makes sense for you or not, right? If someone gives you a mathematical equation that doesn't make sense, 1 + 1 = 5, you can say that does not make sense, right? And you can decline or deny or reject that idea. But once you get into the subconscious mind, that is where the emotion sits. So that's where when you're feeling really anxious about something, that tells you that you're emotionally involved with a negative thought, right? So your body is telling you what is going on in your subconscious mind. Some people talk about the body being a manifestation of your subconscious mind. So your body is actually such an important part to be in tune with because it's telling you exactly what's going on in your mind. And what's really important here is that your subconscious, once it's in your subconscious, that affects your belief system. So the subconscious mind accepts all the thoughts. And how something gets into your subconscious mind is that it's been repeated over and over again. And typically it's been brought through your conscious mind, right? And last time we spoke about if you see an advertisement late at night, your conscious mind, you're almost like falling asleep and you just accept things. You want your conscious mind to be very aware of what you're allowing into your subconscious because that subconscious is so important because that affects your belief system. That is then where these decisions are made, where that is the things that affect your actions and then in turn your results. So I always see the subconscious as such an important place that we need to protect because anything that goes in there affects your beliefs, your habits, the way in which you live, and that CEO of your life essentially.
Yeah, and I there's so many things that comes into my mind when I hear you because well, I'm just gonna go one by one of what came into my mind. When you said, the body is essentially you said the body is the instrument of the mind. So the emotional mind, the subconscious mind really does whatever it's implanted. Like it's just automatic. That's the autopilot. And I hear sometimes people say, oh, I didn't do it because I didn't feel like it.
Yeah.
That's there's something dangerous in that because the reason why you say or you could say because they say I follow my heart, I just tested my heart and it didn't feel like it. Well, didn't feel like it could be also something habitual. It could be familiar. So if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're going to get the same result. So if you say, yeah, I didn't feel like it, well, is that your conscious mind talking or is that your subconscious mind talking? And I would say that a great trick or a great thing to say to people is, if you were the version of the one that achieved the goals or had like the sales target or the business revenue achieve, would you say that? Would you be kind of undisciplined or just say, yeah, I didn't feel like it? Or would that be really, I'm using my intuition? Because I think that you can use your intuition and say, yeah, my gut feeling says it's not a good deal, which is very different, I think, than saying, I didn't feel like it. So like we have to ask ourselves, is this something that I do on an habitual basis? It's always familiar, or and is it in line with the future that I want to create? Because if
Mm.
I want to create a future that's 10x, well, if you do nothing for 6 hours out of the eight, I mean, unless you're very exponential, unless that when you're so sharp and focused that you raise your frequency and your emotion like in such a high level that you can compress in 2 hours, yes, you can achieve that. But being lazy and saying, "Oh, I don't feel like it," is not necessarily going to give you the results. If that makes sense, there's something that came to my mind with that. Um, and the other thing also is that we see these little lines on top of the conscious mind, which is really referred to our senses. So the way we hear, we see, we smell, taste, and touch. And so one of the things that usually influences us to create or making a decision is the external environments, all the stimuli that we get. So what we hear, see, smell, and taste, and touch. But if we live from the outside, we're never going to create something phenomenal. There's
Mm.
always going to be some recession. There's always going to be bad people. There's always going to be bad, whatever it is. That's possible. But the point is that Bob said it very well. You create your own economy, and
Mhm.
you create your own circumstances. I think it's Bernard Shaw that says it. There's an entire quote on that. So you start to live from the inside. That means that you're consciously choosing the type of thoughts that would be aligned with your vision, with the results that you want to achieve, and you start to implement with elevated emotion or being emotionally involved with the image that it gives you to have the results. That's so important.
Absolutely. And as you started talking now, you're saying people say that they don't feel like doing something. And and look, that is often just us being uncomfortable with the unfamiliar, right? That's procrastination. It's like when you're growing, I mean, we spoke about like a goal is the reason and the purpose of a goal is for you to grow as a person. Like the actual goal is almost like a secondary outcome because you need to become that person, and that process is difficult and it's unfamiliar and it's, it feels really awkward, and we definitely will talk about that in the future one, like that kind of growing like discomfort, getting out of your comfort zone does not feel comfortable, and you're challenging yourself to do things that are feeling really uncomfortable. And that's actually a good sign, right? If you are able to move past that thing of I don't feel like, but I'm going to do it anyway because I know that I need to, that really shows that you're committed to reaching your goal. And there's an article that we've read about, someone asked about why do successful people enjoy doing things that unsuccessful people don't do. And I remember someone spoke to me about like cold calling as a salesperson, etc. And the answer is successful people don't enjoy doing it, but they do it anyway because they're more interested in the results than the comfort of right now. They're looking long term, while other people are just thinking in the short term, right? And I think when you can realize that in the short term you are going to get uncomfortable, it is going to feel awkward, but we know it's a stepping stone to where I want to be, that then shows you clarity of just getting it done so that you can get to where you want to be.
Yeah, I think when there's a quote that said something like success is doing the things that failures don't like to do. And that's pretty much what it is like successful people, they are more interested by pleasing results than pleasing methods. So they
Exactly.
might not like the method to reach their goals, but they're way more involved, emotionally involved with the results that they want as opposed to how it's going to be done. And so, and this is like you said, this is the way we grow. And the fact is that I think also, even in terms of our self-image, when we start to do the things that we're not necessarily comfortable with, we're becoming someone new, and then eventually we're getting more confidence because we're realizing that we're getting better at it. And when we start to be better at it and master it, we start to enjoy it even more. And so now all of a sudden there's a new paradigm, there's a new image that we need to create in order to create something even bigger, because we haven't been there
Mhm.
yet. And so,
Mhm.
and I think that the time that we're so aligned with this person, this new person, with the results that we're trying to get or that we embody, then all of a sudden it happens right away. And I like that you talked about decision, because it's been said many times that billionaire people, they make decision quick. And there's, to me, like I share with you this morning, I've realized that when we say we're ready, when I say I'm ready, that means that it happens now. Like, there's, if I'm going into a train and I say I'm ready in 2 weeks, they're gonna say, no, no, you're not ready now because the train is leaving. And so, are you ready or
Leaving.
you're not? Like, I just want to know. Like, don't say I'm ready in 2 weeks. The train is leaving now. So am I ready now? If you say I am ready, you're ready now. And so now you just create from that you start to be responsible and creative into finding the ways to do it. And so I think that's why, making that firm decision, committed decision, and say I'm in. So then I'm in. You act now. You're in a meeting and people are suggesting something and we say we're ready. Then let's have actions now. Let's not wait in 2 weeks, because that's
Mhm.
not now. That's not reacting and creating at the moment. And to me, I just got that when we're on that frequency of that goal, it's already happened. And that's what successful people do. They will find the how. The how is actually going to be shown to them as they grow. Like, it's almost like the parachute
Mm.
is going to be constructed as they're falling. They made that decision now.
Yeah, it's such an important point because I think as people, we so easily get stuck in the how, right? You're like, I want to go here. And then you're kind of thinking of 500 things that could happen, should happen, what can go wrong. But the point is that you must be so clear in the vision that, as you say, the how will unfold as you become ready. And I think that's quite a thing to get over because, again, that's uncomfortable. We're not sure. We don't have the exact path, but there's a lot of belief and faith in that as well.
Yeah, and I also remember a conversation we had, and it was about, let's say, your goal, like, depending on what the goal is, there's a great book called 10x is easier than 2x. And I
Mm,
mentioned it over the last week to my clients so many times, because I think that the power of questions will really dictate your outcome. So if I say, how can you double your business this year? Most people will immediately think about optimizing time,
mm,
having different systems, working more, cutting. Like, it's all squeezing the lemon. It's so difficult, and that's why 10x is easier than 2x. Because if I say, okay, now, like, try to 100x, try to
yeah.
10x next year. There's no way you can have 10x hours in one day. There's no 240 hours in one day. We have 24. So now I have to really start to think about different ways to achieve my goal. So that means now I
Mhm.
have to really be creative and find ways to scale. And I think that's how you start to get exponential results. And but you first must believe it, and you first start, and then that also means you're going to do entirely different actions, entirely different. 10x is, you might destroy completely the way you were doing things, and you might have even new customers, an
Mm.
entirely new way of being.
Right. Mm. Mm. Absolutely. And I want us to quickly go back to those slides because after the picture of the conscious and subconscious mind, we talk about this why do our thoughts matter? That next one. And what I think is we so often do is we let our results affect our thoughts. And that's why we put that red cross there because think about a kid at school who gets a bad mark in a test. You start thinking that I can't do this. Or you have someone in your team, you do a big presentation and you're feeling really nervous, and then you decide you can't do this thing, and you always step away from those opportunities going forward. We need to create the thoughts that are going to serve us and that are going to get us to where we want to be. As Francis was saying, think as if you were already that person. How would an incredible presenter think? How would they go on stage? How would they prepare? How would they, what kind of mindset would they have going into that presentation? Then those thoughts affect your feelings, as we were saying, like that goes into your subconscious mind. It affects your feelings. That then gets delivered through your body, through the actions and through the decisions you make, how you are being and behaving. And that then gives you your results. But so often I think we get results we don't want. And anyone who wants to achieve new things is somewhat unsatisfied with their current results, right? Because we want to do better, we want to improve. So if you're always thinking that I can only be as good as my results, you will never get out of this loop because you're going to be stuck in it, right? So if you're just thinking today my results are not where I want it to be, and I'm still thinking on that level, you will always stay there. So you need to stop having your results impact your thoughts. We were saying earlier, your thoughts is internal. Everything starts from within. So once we realize that, we can control the way we think, can control the way, what we're thinking so that it can affect our results and can get us to where we want to be, that's when you break that cycle. And I think it's so important for us to break that feedback loop and just say, I will choose to think and act and behave as that person to get me to where I want to be. And that is regardless of what's happening right now.
Absolutely. And I'm thinking about other things when you said like, do my thoughts matter, and the thoughts itself. So couple of things that I think that I would suggest, or I'm curious about what you think about that, but I really firmly believe that environment is more important than heredity. And that's something that also Bob Proctor talks about. So if you're in an environment that people are very negative, what type of thoughts will be created
Yeah.
from that environment? So
Hmm.
it's very important to also kind of choose the type of environment that we're in, and the people that are within this environment, because the type of thoughts that will be emerge from that will be entirely different. Positive people, positive thoughts, different feelings, different actions, different
Hmm.
results. And so that's not for the start. And I really feel that feelings are a way of creating exponential results, because if I think about the way that I've manifested, I was using my subconscious mind a lot, and I would just kind of force my way into thinking that it would work. But the problem was that my subconscious mind was not change. And I never knew that. And so even if I had my affirmations and I would say, oh, I'm rich, I'm this, I'm that, if at the end of the day my subconscious mind thinks differently, it's not going to happen. And so now I'm curious, what would you say to people that say, oh, well, how do I rewire my operating system? How do I change my thoughts and really the feelings, which is the one in the subconscious mind that will start to do things automatically? The
Hmm.
body is the instrument of the mind. So the feeling is what is going to drive everything, and then your actions will dictate your results.
Absolutely. And we're going to get to that rewiring now, but I just want to talk quickly about the environment that you mentioned. I think it's so important because, lots of people have said before that you become, the average of the five people you surround yourself with, etc. And I think when you're in a place where you are really committed to reaching these results you want, that's a place where we need to start making tough decisions. I mean, we've already spoken about decision making, but be really aware of what's around you, who is around you. Are you spending time with the right people? I mean, I've had like situations where I had people in my life that were very like they were draining for energetically. They were always thinking about why things can't work, etc. And I've chosen to spend less time with them just because I want to surround myself with people that are optimistic, looking for opportunities, support me, back me. Those are things that are really important to me because making these changes is difficult enough, right? You may as well support yourself or surround yourself with people who support you and believe in you and build you up and are happy when you succeed, right? Because what I always find is that when you start doing well, some people are genuinely happy for you and other people are not as much. And I think that almost tells you, who are your real friends, who are the people who are really sincerely happy for you. Now, rewiring your mind is really
Can I
important.
pause
And I,
you
I think,
2 seconds on that, Elise? I know it's like
sure, yeah.
we're in a conversation, because you said something very, very important, I think, for the environment. I think that there's also another distinction that I'd like to bring in, which is, yes, there are some people that are negative around us, and there's a difference between allowing them to dictate how you feel,
Hmm.
or like you said, choose a different environment and don't play like a victim, because it's not like if you
Hmm.
start to say, oh, it's because of this person and it's because of this and it's because of that, then you're basically saying that you're letting your outside circumstance dictate how you feel. So it's good to be aware of what type of environment I'm in and then choose the environment I want without being a victim, but being someone that is in charge of his own destiny. And that's really, really
Mm.
important. And I would also say another thing is that paying attention to the environment that we have. Are we watching negative news? Are we being
Yeah.
distracted by our phone constantly with notifications that doesn't serve at
Mm.
all our mission? And so in a way to create good feelings, if I get constantly some notification, I start to be anxious and panicky about all the things I have to do, then all of a sudden I'm in that space. And in that space, I'm not creating very well. So I got to be able to relax. And so that's why I think during the day, even Ray Dalio, who earns billions of dollars every year, meditates 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the afternoon, because he's basically regulating the way that he's feeling so that he can start to now be creative and find ways to behave in a new way. And now you can speak about reward.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's really interesting because I think that, I'm sure most of us have realized that sometimes you'll, as you say, scroll on your phone or see something and you're feeling different. You're feeling down, you're feeling sad, you're feeling anxious. And again, I think it's so important to be aware of that. And, just a few days ago, I was like, what happened? Like, what have I just done that made me feel like this? And I think it's so important to start just having that awareness and going, identifying what those triggers are. Sure, we can't like avoid everything in our lives. People often joke about like a coworker you don't like. It's not like you can never see them, but you must firstly, if you can, choose to spend less time with the individual, whoever it may be. And then secondly, you need to start regulating your emotions so that you can not have those like extreme responses, right? Don't just react to them. Take a breath and choose to focus on, other things. And I think, it's just having that pause in your life where you can go, I'm not going to let this trigger really put my whole day out. I'm going to choose to respond in a different way and kind of manage my emotions better.
Yeah, I like to say the fact that you say pause because that means with the concept that we talked about today, subconscious mind is autopilot. So if you don't have that pause, it's just going to run the program. We already know that we already know what's going to happen. So by pausing, which could happen in so many different ways, right? Like a 5 minutes break, walking outside around the building, meditating if you can, do a 15 minutes exercise. It doesn't need to be complicated. Even box breathing for the people that know, it's like 4 seconds inhale, four hold, and you hold for 4 seconds. You exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold it for four. Do that in 3 cycles. Your system is completely changed. Now all of a
Yeah.
sudden, all right, I can do this. I'm just gonna recenter, and we're gonna find the solution. I can do this. I'm
Mhm.
capable of.
Mm. Another one that I really like is walking barefoot on the grass. And I
Yeah.
remember someone told me that during the like COVID pandemic. And I was like, man, this feels so good. Like it somehow just like centers you, right? You're close to nature. I often used to just like enjoy lying down on the grass, but it's really good to just even just change your environment. As you said, take a walk around the block, just go and do something else and get yourself out of that loop. Because again, your mind starts replaying things over and over again, and you almost just need to like snap out of it, right?
Exactly. So here we go now. How do we rewire our brain,
Yeah.
our mind, as better say, because brain is just a substance that we have, a electrical station. The mind is conscious and subconscious. So how do we change the subconscious mind?
Mm. So the main thing is through repetition. And I think last time we spoke about it can be basically done in two ways, right? So it's either like a sudden impact, typically negative, 9/11 or a pandemic or one of those as an example, right? Something major happens in your life. You take a pause and you say, is this the way I want to live my life? I think, if you lost a loved one or something really dramatic happened in your life, we often then reassess whether we want to live our lives in a certain way and if what we've always believed is true and do we really want to play things safe. But if you want to avoid that and do it in a more almost proactive and a positive way in your life, constant spaced repetition is the only way you can change your subconscious mind. And that means almost that you need to do the illogical, right? So you often think that you've heard something once and now I get it. You've read a book once and now I understand it. But the way that your mind was programmed was through repetition. It's the things that you always heard your parents or people around you saying. It's the language you speak. It's everyone around you, teachers. It's things that were ingrained in you over and over again over months or years. And to reverse that, you need to do the same, right? So you need to repeat more thoughts that serve you. You need to repeat new ideas, new actions. And it actually feels really uncomfortable at first because you're going, I've done this exercise, I've read this passage, like, why do I need to repeat it? And doing that illogical and doing that repetition, although it seems somewhat arbitrary at first, I think that is the commitment to the change you want. You and I were talking today about a lesson that we were both listening to this morning, and we must have listened to it, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 times each already over
Right.
the years. And every time I listen to it, I hear something different. It's like when you read a book, and there's that quote that says, when you read a book, the fifth time and you see something different, it's not that the words have changed because it's printed, right? It's that you're seeing something different because you have changed.
Yeah.
Your awareness has changed. How you approach things, how you listen to it, how you, think about things has changed. And for me, that's always so interesting. And there's a graph that I saw about repetition. And even when I talk to my clients who are trying to change their culture and their business, and they're presenting a new strategy or they're presenting kind of new plans for the business, and they'll often be like, but I've presented it, so now why is it not just happening, right? Like, I don't understand why is it not over time, like overnight is it not happening? And the point is that people need to hear things over and over and over again. Firstly, they may not have been through the thought process you've been through. So they need to almost understand exactly why and how you got to where you want to be. But let's be honest, like, people get distracted all the time, right? You're either distracted by your phone or something jogs a thought in your memory. And like, they were listening and then they kind of get, sidetracked by something else, and they come back and listen to you and then they get sidetracked again. So at the end of the day, they're actually only hearing, I don't know, half of the message. So
Hmm.
by repeating over and over again, it's almost like you're filling in the gaps, right? Because every time you tell the story, they're not hearing 100%. They're not being focused and completely, they have all their attention on what you're presenting. So that repetition almost allows you to fill in the gaps over and over again. So it overlaps over time, and then they get the full message. And now I almost see like reprogram our minds similar to that, right? You need to repeat it over and over again. In the beginning, your subconscious is going, this feels awkward. This doesn't feel quite true. And the more you repeat it, the more you go, hey, like, I can do this and I am going to do this. And I'm feeling better and better about it. And that's how you start to then actually embody what you're repeating to yourself.
I love that. And the way I was thinking, I thought I would when I was in corporate, and then the the head office would come up with some initiatives, and they would only say it like once or twice. And so I think that as a leader, the more you repeat it, the more the employees and the managers and the leaders would believe that this is really important. Because if it's only said once, it's almost like,
It's
oh
true.
yeah, this initiative again, they're
I
going to
forgot
change their
about it.
mind in the next quarter. So it doesn't feel like it's really that important. And consistency is so important for
That's a good
changing our
point.
own mind and changing the culture,
Mm,
because it means something. And another thing that I like in the way that you're explaining is you use the word story, the same story. And in story,
mm,
for me, I see the vision. I see vivid images of what that looks like and why that is important. Because if I don't know why it's important, if I don't even have a vision of where it's going, it's just going to be this and blah blah blah. And if it's not even repeated, it's not going to stick. And so
mm,
everyone needs to be on board and see the vision, like we talked about in the first episode, and really understanding why is that important, and being emotionally involved with the victory. Where we
mm,
would be, how far, what would happen, what becomes possible when this victory happens. Or, well, if that's that, then we're going into a different country, we're opening a new branch. Oh, this is exciting, I want to be part of this. And that's usually why the people are staying within an organization, right? Because of the vision that they see. They say, oh, they're growing, I like their vision,
mm.
constantly talk about it. So it's ingrained into the culture. It's ingrained into the self-image of the organization, the subconscious of the organization, and that's why it runs. And everyone that comes in, they can feel the culture. They can
Mm.
see how people are committed because it's been repeated and ingrained into their body.
So as you were speaking now, it's amazing how I was saying sometimes you suddenly hear something, and you were talking about how people, get emotionally involved in the culture and the vision. And so when I was in banking, at one stage I was kind of leading our private bank, and I always used to say to our bankers, like, what you do matters, right? Like, you are dealing with people's money. Money is emotional, but it's also, how am I caring about my family? What legacy am I leaving? What is kind of the story of my life, and how am I going to look after people that are really important to me? And I remember I used to tell my team this, like, what you do is really important. Like, you are helping people leave a legacy in their life, look after their families. And it's so interesting because, that really excites me, and it feels so purposeful. And I said to my team, like, you getting out of bed, like, you do something meaningful every single day. And I remember people were like, gee, Elise, it's just banking. Like, why are you making such a big deal of it? But as you say, like, people see the purpose, they see the vision, they find meaning in what they do. And I could see how my team was responding differently, because when they spoke to a client, it wasn't just, I need to get this thing done. It's like, how am I helping you get to where you want to be? How am I doing something that is really meaningful to you? And how can I be of service? And as you were talking now, it reminded me of that. That's exactly what we were doing, right? Helping people find purpose, helping them find meaning. And that's when people start seeing what they do differently. I mean, I could see people walk into the office differently. They serve clients differently. They were more responsive, because it was like, I have a really important job to fulfill. And it's so amazing how the penny only just dropped for
I
me
love
now
it.
as we
I
had
can
this
see the passion.
conversation.
This is palpable. And it's like, imagine if you go to work and every day you're like, today I'm changing people's life.
Mm.
I was not even in banking, but I can imagine if I was in banking and I would see someone and I know that this loan could mean a dream to be realized,
Absolutely.
or study, or you know schooling for a kid, and like there's so many things that could happen and that can change life just by me interacting with this client. Now I'm totally excited to go to work. Very
Mm.
different that, oh, I gotta input this first sheet, and then that second sheet you go in the system, oh, there's a new
And I have to answer this call.
to
Yeah.
SAP, whatever it is.
Mm.
So it's like it's a whole different game. And
Mm.
I think either in our own personal life, thank you for bringing the purpose back. Like like if I want to change, and if the change means something to me, then I can become someone new. Then I will definitely do the work and do the constant space repetition because it means something to me. And my new life is purposeful. Like I know
Mm.
why I'm doing it. And so I'm going to do everything and all that it takes to spend, if I have to spend an hour or two on reprogramming my subconscious mind every day because it's going to make such a big difference in my life, I will do it. And
Mm.
if I don't do it, then it's going to be the same familiar results, the same future by default.
Yeah, and I think it's such an important reminder that we do this for ourselves so that we can, evolve into the person we want to be. And that same method works for your business and for the group of people that you're around. And most of us have, like, a professional and a personal life, and these skills that we're talking about right now will serve you in both of them, right? And even if you working on goals in your personal life, you are growing in your awareness, you're growing as a person, and that will make you better in your professional life as well. So this is actually all intertwined, and even your family will benefit because the way you interact with them will change. And as you were saying, like, a business is actually just like, it's a culmination of people, and the culture is just, how your people interact. So if you're working on changing the paradigm of yourself, that's, you're doing the constant space repetition, you're doing your intentional work for yourself. How do you change the culture of a group? You're doing the same stuff, right? You're repeating what you're doing, you're finding purpose, you're all aligning to the same vision. And that's when you get the whole group collectively to grow and to benefit from this work.
Yeah, and before we do a kind of a sum wrap up of everything, I thought about the leaders that, in order, because if you don't change the way you're thinking, nothing's going to change. We already know that. So if there's a new initiative that's being there, like I think it's important to question our beliefs and also say that if I'm doing this new initiative and that's a whole new jump into the previous situation, have I changed my beliefs? Have I changed my thinking? If I haven't changed my thinking or my belief, it's going to be very hard to have a different results.
Mhm.
So this is really important to kind of say and reflect and, okay, this is my goal for this year. This is a business outcome that I'm looking for. Do I really believe it? Do I have my beliefs that are aligned with this new version of the organization or this new version of myself? If I am not changing any habits or any ways of being, then it's going to stay the same. And so for the key takeaways, I think even for today, we're talking about, are we dealing with the root cause or the symptoms? Like we even started with saying, the sales organization, they could spend a lot of money on sales training, but if they're not addressing the root cause of sales, which is really how the salespeople are thinking about themselves, they're thinking about the product, they're thinking about the capacity of the product to make a difference. Coming with purpose
Mhm.
at work. I know that what I'm selling and what I'm doing has a big impact on my clients. If I only have this thing as a firm belief at the root cause, I mean, I'm changing the whole organization with my outcomes. And what's the cause of low profit? What's the cause of low sales? It's not the tactics, it's not the outside, it's not the environment. It's really the internal operating system of people, leaders, and the organization, which is the culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, the few things that I kind of noted from our conversation is, if we're so intentional about changing this root cause, firstly, as a leader, am I creating that vivid vision? Am I creating that real purpose for people to align to and work towards? Then, am I repeating it? Am I being consistent? And am I repeating it so that everyone aligns to it? And then, thirdly, am I doing what it takes to change my paradigm and then change everyone around me? How am I inspiring them to do the work? And I think it's, when you give people a reason to want to change, to go through like the discomfort of changing, and if everyone is committed to doing that together, you have such a powerful, we were talking about surrounding yourself with the right people. You've got such a powerful environment to affect change, and that's affecting everyone in the organization. You, as a leader, are leading the charge, and then your entire team gets to benefit because they are growing as individuals. And then in turn, your business is growing.
Beautiful. I love it. We're always learning, and I hope that this is those concepts are seems to be very basic and simple. And the thing is, the more you do it, the more you repeat it, you will. That's the key. It's like a lot of people don't want to do the constant space repetition because it could look boring or, like you said, illogical. But we got to do the illogical, because if we do the logical, we're gonna do the same predictable future. It's gonna be a default by a future by default. And so that's why we would like invite you to connect. If there's anything that we'd like to do with us in your organizations, like shaping your future. I guess I'm gonna take that as a sign to be able to shape your future. You have to be able to and willing to change your paradigms. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So if you want to connect with Elise or myself, we are here. You can just screenshot this thing, and we'll have a strategy call with you and take a look at what you want to accomplish, the vision, and what's in the way. And definitely now you know that there's a lot of things that needs to happen in the internal world instead of the outside world, right?
Mm. Yep. It all starts internally, and that's when you get the results you want externally. Amazing. Francis, thank you so much for the conversation. It was really fun having this conversation with you.
Absolutely. And looking forward for the next one. You're going to learn so
Absolutely.
much more again. And thank you so much for joining us.